Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Stephen Cheevers Mindtrip. Really appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you're enjoying this series. So today I want to talk about turning objections into sales triumphs. The thing about objection handling is that can be the difference between you being pretty good at sales and being an unbelievable salesperson. I've coached I don't know how many different salespeople, how many different business owners, how many different coaches on how to sell. And over the years, I've come across some great salespeople, but they just can't overcome objections. They can't close the deal. You know, they can really pitch, they can really sell, but they just can't get over that last little hurdle. And that's why I say objection handling is really the difference between somebody who's pretty good at sales and someone who's really excellent at it. And it requires, a bit of a mindset shift. Objection handling is one of those things, especially, in your early days as a salesperson, you might get a little bit, cocky or arrogant. You might be like, this is easy. I'm coming up against some, reasonably easy things here. It's not that hard. I'm able to challenge people here and there. But as you go through it, you will come across more difficult people. And it becomes a real mindset shift on whether you're going to be one of these salespeople that consistently just rolls over and goes, oh yeah, no, that's okay, sure, have a think about it. Or you're going to challenge that person on their beliefs and you're really going to go after every single sale. And that's why I love salespeople that are on 100% commission, right? Because it's all or nothing for them. If you're in a salary job where like you get a little bit of a bonus if you sell something and you still get like pretty good money even if you don't, there's no real incentive for you to really dive deep and really extract those objections and try and get a deal done there on the day. And if you can become that salesperson that does that no matter what, your close rate's going to go through the roof. Okay. And like I said, that's why I like the people that are either selling for themselves or they're selling for 100% of just commission. Like that's their only way of getting paid, because they have to learn how to objection handle. There's no if I've just wasted an hour of my time with you and you're not going to buy, I've earned zero for that. Okay. There's no basic salary for me. There's no hourly rate. There's no monetary fee. It's like, I need to sell to you. I need to overcome this. So it forces you to get good at it. And that's why I think if you're interested in becoming a salesperson, at some point in your journey, you should work in a 100% commission environment. One of the things that I sort of come across fairly regularly whenever we're hiring salespeople is we get people coming in from the recruitment space who feel like they're incredible salespeople. And to be honest, they're not. And that's no disrespect to anybody maybe listening to this that's in the recruitment space and you want to become a better salesperson. You should work on sales, because what I find whenever I've interviewed someone that comes from the recruitment background is, I'll interview them and be like, well, what's your salary expectations? And they're like, oh, well, I get paid $7,000 a month basic now. And then, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, bro, this is a sales gig. Like, I'm not paying you $7,000 just to turn up to work. That's insane to me. So I just never hire anybody from the recruitment space because their expectations are completely unrealistic and they can't sell when they come in, because they come in, they're used to collecting like a huge basic salary regardless of if they do any work or not. And then, recruitment's not really selling. So it's different whenever you are in like a closing job or you're maybe selling cars or something like that. And you're like, you have to sell or you don't earn any money. So today I'm going to give you some personal techniques for preemptively addressing common objections even before they arise. And we want to build a foundation of trust and credibility from the first interaction. And that's really, really key, because a lot of the times what I'll say to my clients whenever they say, oh, I keep getting this objection, I keep getting that objection, I'm like, well, let me see your pre-qualifying form. Let me see your script that you're using. Let me see all of these things. And 9 times out of 10, the reason they're getting the objections isn't because they haven't sold the product well, it's because they didn't pre-qualify them. So a lot of objections can be overcome just simply by pre-qualifying. And in the game that I operate in, which is, coaching, there really is only 4 objections. One's going to be price. So can they afford it? Can they not afford it? And if you get to the end of your sales pitch and they're like, oh, I can't afford this, I mean, that's on you for not pre-qualifying that person to see if it's even within their price range. Because if somebody comes to you with to buy a Ferrari with a Ford budget, that's on you for not pre-qualifying early. Like, it doesn't matter how great of a salesperson you are. If somebody wants to spend $50,000 on a truck and you're trying to sell them a $200,000 sports car that they could never ever afford, that's doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are. Like, they can't afford it, right? So you've got to pre-qualify price before you're even having like a sales call with them. It's like, can you, like, before I spend even 15 minutes, never mind an hour of my time, can you actually afford this? The next one's going to be partner/spouse, okay? And again, depends on what you're selling. Is it going to be spouse, as in I need to go talk to my wife, I need to go talk to my husband around this? Or, are you working in high-level business where there could be a business partner involved? Or, is it like a huge business where it's going to be like a corporate decision? There's going to be like a board involved in this decision, right? Okay. Again, you got to pre-qualify all these things, because there's no point in you spending all this time pitching, building proposals, doing all of these different things just to find out that the guy you're speaking to can't even make a decision on it. So those two you can sort of pre-qualify early doors. And then the other two are time. So do they have time to actually implement what it is that you're doing? So again, if you are selling something like coaching, you could do all of this work with them just to find out that they're like, well, I don't have any time to do this because I'm a shift worker. I work 12-hour days. I sleep all night. The gym's not open at midnight, blah, 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 blah. If you're selling fitness coaching as an example there. So those are other things that you got to work around too. And the last one is, do they believe in you and do they believe in the product? Okay, so belief, do they actually believe that what it is you offer can solve their problems? Okay, and there's two sort of sides to this. It's like, do they believe that you can solve their problems? And then the second one is, do they believe that it can solve any problems? Like, is it just a fugazi? Is it a scam, right? Okay, so again, that's up to you to build that belief in them, that one, the testimonials and the case studies and everything that you talk about are all legit. And two, that not only does it work for other people, but it works for them as well. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to overcome these objections and really build belief and faith in the product, and also get rid of as many objections upfront as possible before you get to even giving them the price and trying to close them. I want to give you today, like I said, a step-by-step guide on how to actually navigate through those common sales objections, okay? From whether it's pricing concerns to timing issues, and actually how to turn them into a compelling reason for clients to commit on the day to you, okay? There's a big importance on confidence and preparedness in handling objections, okay? You need to emphasize, how a well-handled objection, it can significantly increase the likelihood of a sale for you, okay? If you don't know what to say, okay, or let's say you're doing sales calls, or you're maybe on a Zoom like now, and I'm looking at you and I'm like, and you say whatever objection, and then I have to like flick through my notes and go, yes, blah, 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 right? That's no good. You need to know exactly what to say as soon as they say it. And if it was me, I would be practicing these. I would have them on my script at the bottom, but I would know them off the top of my head. I would be practicing them over and over and over and over. If client says X, I say Y, okay? But again, I'm going to try and give you a framework today that's going to eliminate as many objections up front that there's not going to be any on the back end anyway, right? There could be some minor ones to do with price, but that's about it, okay? And like I said, I'm going to give you some real life examples of how I actually do that. And we want to turn objections into key turning points in the sales process. So let's get into some practical exercises and phrases that you can use immediately to start improving your objection handling skills. I want you to, if you've listened to this or watched this today, you can go away, take notes, and actually implement this into your sales process immediately, and actually get a tangible result right away. So let's get right into it. The key part of objection handling, like I said, can be straight away just from the pre-qualification phase, okay? So depending on how people book in with you, whether they book in for physical appointments, someone's coming to actually see you, if you, like I said, you maybe sell cars or whatever it is you sell, or maybe you're going out to them, or it's a sales call. No matter what way that is, no matter what way that's booked, you need to pre-qualify people, and you need to pre-qualify them in a manner that's going to allow you to ascertain whether this is worthwhile exploring with them, okay? So you may want to ask a couple of, introductory questions just to get the conversation flowing, because you don't want to like outright say someone's looking to, maybe, have a look at your product and you're like, hey, can you afford this? That's not cool. So, you might want to get some introductory details, like name, email address. Okay, cool. Get them talking. Then you want to, if you're selling coaching, you might want to clarify niche. So one of the things in my mentorship business, one of the first questions we'll ask, we go name, email address, and then we'll go, are you a fitness coach? Because we only work with fitness coaches in that particular mentorship program. So if they're not a fitness coach, there's absolutely no point in them booking a call with my sales team, because we don't sell to people who aren't fitness coaches, okay? So that eliminates people immediately. And then, you may want to ask some more questions just to get the ball rolling before you ask the hard ones about, give me a bit of a background on where you're at with things, give me this, give me that, bang, bang, bang. And you just get them filling out this form, really easy questions to go. And then that's when you can go into, how committed are you to, this journey, how X, how Y. And then that's when you can go into the likes of the price. So the last few questions are going to be harder questions. They're going to be like, can you afford to invest between X and Y? Right. And the reason we ask that is you don't want to just straight up say, can you afford to invest $5,000? Can you afford to invest 15 grand? Right. Because then they go, oh, well, the program's 15 grand. That's probably a wee bit more than I want to spend. Now they can't be sold to. Now they can't be given any value. Right. What you're better doing is taking the price of your program, breaking it up into a daily rate, and then saying, can you invest between X and Y into getting this result? Okay. And the X, you want to put around 20% lower than what the price actually is. And the Y, you want to put around 25% higher than what the price actually is. And the reason that you want to do that is that immediately people are going to look at that price range and they're going to go either, yes, I can afford that. I could probably afford towards the lower end, but I couldn't afford towards the higher end. Or they're going to say, I can't afford that at all. No matter if it's this or this, I can't afford it, right? So that eliminates people that can't afford it right away. The people that can afford it, all good. And the people that could maybe stretch or could become close are also going to be qualified in as, yes, this person's worth speaking to, okay? So that's how you handle the price objection up front, okay? Where we know that they can afford it, okay? Or we know that they can afford close to it, right? Because you can't expect to speak to people like 100% of people that can always afford everything, okay? And that's up to you to build a payment plan off the back of that. Now, after that, then a really key question is, are you the sole decision maker in your business or in this decision, right? And that implies, do you need to go speak to your wife? Do you need to go speak to a business partner? Am I actually speaking to the right person about this? And again, the answers there might be yes, which is great. That's what we want to hear. Or the answer could be no. So I put no, but in brackets, go and speak to them or invite them to the call, right? So now I've basically said to them, I'm only interested in speaking to you if you can make a decision on the day, right? And that's really, really key. So that's trying to pre-qualify price and spouse before they've even booked the call, okay? Now, you're probably listening to this and you're like, oh, well, I've done that before and people still show up and they haven't spoken to their wife about it or this, that, the other. That's going to happen, okay? But what we're trying to do here is just do our very best to eliminate as many of these issues up front as possible. And then what we're going to do is when we actually get into the script itself, okay? So when we actually get into the physical script, that's when we're going to revisit those things, okay? So whenever somebody then eventually comes on to a sales call with me, I always go back over what they've said on their form because I want to make sure that that information is accurate. Okay. So what I'll do, whenever someone comes on to a sales call with me is, I'll obviously build a bit of rapport. I'll get into, a few sort of qualifying questions, make sure we're all, on the same page here. I'll set an agenda for the day. So, I'm going to let them know this is how the call is going to go. And this is why we're going to do it this way. So I'll always say, we're going to do X because of Y. We're going to do X because of Y. We're going to do X because of Y. And then I'll ask them, are they cool with that? Are you cool with that? Or is there anything else that you want to cover off? Or are you happy for me to take the lead here? they don't know what way this is going to go. So they're always going to say, I'm happy for you to take the lead. This puts you in control of the process. And now, you're not concerned about them, trying to talk over the top of you or anything like that, because you've given them the choice and they've said, no, you do it. You run the show. Okay. And that's basically how you sort of lock them in there. Now, like I said, you want to go into the pre-qualifying stuff again. Okay. You want to get into the stuff that they've already answered. Okay. So the way I kind of do it is I'll say something like, look, before I really go into anything more, I really respect your time. I don't want to waste it or my own. There's obviously a financial investment involved, like it said on the booking form. Okay. And you answered yes to being able to invest between X and Y and being the sole decision maker in your business. So look, if the call was to go exceptionally well, are you in a financial position to invest somewhere between X and Y into getting result and make a decision on that today? And then that asks them just straight up. It's like, look, you've said you can afford this. Can you invest it? And you've said you are the sole decision maker. Is that actually the case, right? 9 times out of 10, people will match what they've said on the form. They'll say, that all sounds okay. And I'm in a position to make that decision today. That sounds good. Okay. Sometimes what you'll get is people will say, oh, well, I could probably afford this, but not that. And then in your head, okay, right, well, they definitely can't afford this, so I should probably just sell them, do a downsell with them now instead of wasting my time. Or they might say, oh, well, you know what, I need to speak to the wife today. And what I'll say to that is, okay, cool. Well, is your wife there that she could join the call now? And, sometimes they'll say, well, yeah, actually, I gotta go get her. Sometimes they'll say, no. Then what I'll do at that point is I'll just say, look, like I said, I really respect your time, really value my time. We can't really do anything today if you're not in a position to give me a decision one way or another, okay? So I need you to either speak to the wife before we do this call or bring her to the call, like it said on the onboarding form. That's just how I operate. That's just how we operate as a business. So when would it suit you to rebook? And I don't give them an option of like, oh yeah, let's continue the call. It's like, when would it suit you to rebook? Because they've just told you that no matter what, they're not signing up today. Okay. And yes, you'll get some sales coaches and stuff, and they'll say that you can really bully especially if it's a man, into like making a decision, questioning their manhood and stuff like that. I mean, I don't really believe in all that. I think if you do that to somebody, a lot of the times they'll go away, then they'll come back and say, oh, I spoke to the wife, I need a refund. It's not a great way to start a business relationship. You're better just rebooking the call with them. And, if they get their back up at that, they're probably, they probably were never signing up anyway. Okay. Like if they need their wife's permission or their husband's permission or whatever to make all these decisions, and they don't respect your time enough to, actually like follow your process, then fuck them. Right. Just move on from them. Just go and get somebody else in. Right. That's just if somebody needs to go and speak to their wife, what the problem's going to be there, right, is that whenever they go and speak to their wife about it, one, you've got to remember that the wife or the husband or the partner, whoever it is, right, they've not been sold the value. So all they're going to ask them is like, what is it that you're unsure of? Or sometimes in spousal relationships, basically they'll just say, look, well, the money's not being spent on me, so I'm vetoing it. And that happens all the time, right? They're like, oh, well, you're going to take money out of our joint account to pay for your fitness or your whatever, or your new car or your new this. What's in it for me, right? Human beings are always thinking what's in it for me. And in that scenario, there's nothing in it for them. So if you haven't sold the value to them, all that spouse is going to do is say, well, what are you not sure of? Or I don't want you to spend the money on that, right? Whereas if they're on the call and they see the value, or they've discussed it in advance and say, look, I'm thinking of spending this money on this. Are you cool with that? And they're like, yeah, look, you go and do whatever you do. You don't need to worry about that. So it's really important that you pre-qualify them there and then. It's like they can make a decision. Now, sometimes you'll get people and they'll say, oh, well, I never make a decision on the day, blah, 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 blah. And that's really where you want to get into, like, cool, appreciate you being honest with me, but, this is just how I operate. I'd rather you just give me a yes or a no. So if, look, all I'd ask for you today is if we get to the end of this and you feel like this is a good fit and you want to join, you either give me a yes or a no. No maybes, no, I need to think about it. It's okay. Because I need to think about it, and maybes are really no good for anyone. That just leaves us both in limbo. I've got to chase you. I'll be honest with you. Most people that I end up chasing just end up ghosting me. Nobody ever comes back to me. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. Okay. So if you get to the end of today and you're like, fuck yeah, I want to do this, just give me a yes and let's move forward. And if you get to the end of today and you say, no, this isn't for me, that's cool. We'll shake hands and we'll go separate ways. Can you do that for me? Right. Most people will, give you a yes. And again, if they just say no to that, like they're not being reasonable with you. Look, just offer them your downsell that takes like 10 minutes to pitch and fucking get rid of them. They'll either buy that or they won't. But again, I can guarantee you today that if you get to the end of the call and you're trying to close somebody who is just this wishy-washy person, they haven't spoke to their spouse, they don't make decisions on the day, they don't do this, they don't do that. One, they'll either be a nightmare client, and two, if they do come on board, and two, they're probably not going to buy anyway. So you're really just wasting your time there. That's just my opinion on it from over 10 years of sales experience. So that's how I would go about that. Now, with the rest of the objection handling series, you want to have a good solid script that is taking them through as many aspects of your program or whatever it is you're selling as possible. You obviously want to go through the standard stuff like their goals or what it is they want to get out of this purchase, their pain points, what it is that they're suffering with right now, that your service is going to help them. And then, that's when we want to start getting into like, how are we actually going to sell them into the program? Now, what I would do is I kind of split it up like this. So I take them through goals, I take them through pain points, and then I give my sales pitch of like how my service or program or whatever can completely change their life and do that. And I only say that in a scenario where I feel like it could. Remember, I pre-qualify the hell out of people, so there shouldn't really be anybody I'm speaking to or my team speaking to that we can't actually service, okay? So, sell with, be moral and ethical in your sales. Like, don't try and sell something to somebody that you can't really make a big change for. So when I say like I'm talking about, changing people's lives, I truly believe that, okay? So make sure you're doing the same thing. So how we eradicate the objections before we even get into the price is we do what's called a pre-close sequence. Now, you will have heard of this. It's been on Instagram Reels. Alex Hormozy's done it on ones before. There's been other guys that have done it. It's a very, very old system. Okay. It's not new. It's any of these gurus that you've seen have done this on like Instagram Reels and stuff. They didn't invent it. It's definitely been around longer than 10 years anyway, because I remember doing it back when I sold cars. So after you've sort of sold them the value, you've went through their goals, their pain points, they know what the program entails, you want to get into what I call a pre-close sequence. And the pre-close sequence kind of goes something like this. Excellent. So before I go any further, I just want to get a quick sense check from you to make sure I've covered everything off up to this point that you needed to know, so you're not left with any outstanding questions about the program. And they're like, right, okay, cool. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, Stephen, I fucking hate you. I never, ever want to speak to you again. And 10 being, the program is perfect. It's everything I'm looking for. Sign me up yesterday. Where would you put yourself? Right? Now, the reason I ask it, and I ask it in that particular way, you can swear or not swear depending on, your niche and your client and how like good a rapport you've had. I think putting in like, I fucking hate you, really emphasizes it, right? That's going to get them laughing. It's going to get, they're like, yeah, you're having a bit of banter with them. They're enjoying it. And I think that's really important as well, right? And then you're going to the other extreme being like, oh my God, everything's so perfect. I want to give you my money yesterday, right? That is giving them two extremes. So what's going to happen is, depending on, everything that you've went over today, depending on how good your pitch has been, depending on like genuinely how they're feeling, what they're going to do is they're probably going to give you a 7 or an 8. And the reason they're going to give you a 7 or an 8 is nobody's really going to give you like a 4, because that's implying that they hate you, they don't like you. It's implying that like you guys haven't gotten on today. Now, I do actually have an answer for if somebody does give you a 4, or lower, but generally people are going to just default 7 or 8, right? And sometimes you will get people that go to like a 9 or a 10. But if you can't close the people that go to a 9 or a 10, like you maybe find a different career. But most people are going to, like 99% of people are going to give you a 7 or an 8. And the reason that they're going to give you a 7 or an 8 is, like I said, one, they don't want to give you a low score because they don't want to offend you. They probably have, gotten on with you in some way, shape, or form. They don't hate you. They don't think you're a complete asshole unless you are a complete asshole. But the reason they probably won't give a 10 or a 9 is because they're sort of playing all their cards. They're just sort of going to you as a salesperson, sign me up, right? Like charge me whatever. Because remember, they don't really know the price yet. They know a range that the price could be, but they don't know the actual price. So they're not gonna necessarily play all their cards. So they're generally gonna give you a 7 or 8, right? And what I would normally say to that is, okay, wow, a 7, that's a really high score. Look, I'm just curious, like, tell me, like, why did you score it a 7? Now they're gonna tell you everything that they absolutely love about the program. And you can just extract all that and sort of not necessarily use it against them, but you're like, right, okay. But you're getting it into their head that, like, I love this, I love this, I love this, I love this, right? You still haven't found the objections yet. So this is where we're finding our objections before we've even tried to close, okay? So like I said, this is the pre-close sequence. So now you can then say, okay, awesome. I love to hear that. So, just out of curiosity, what is the difference for you between a 7 and a 10? And now they're going to tell you what the true objection is, okay? If you didn't do this pre-close sequence, you were going to get this objection when you asked for the business. And at that stage, it's too late because now you've got to like backpedal and like constantly like keep fucking going round in circles, round in circles, round in circles, right? So what they're going to do now is they're either going to tell you, okay, well, I can't give you a 10 because I don't know the price yet. Okay, that's a pretty common one, which is actually a great, that's what you want to hear. If they say, oh, well, I'm not sure about, how this program element works, or I'm not sure about the level of support, or I'm not sure about this, or I'm not sure about that, right? Now you can overcome those because you know what they are, okay? A lot of the times questions like that, they would have just kept those in the back of their head and said, I need to think about it, right? Instead of actually being upfront and saying, so now you're actually finding out blah, 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 blah. So what you can do there is just answer all those objections, and then you can hit them with, okay, so, I'm going to, let me answer all those outstanding questions for you, and let's see if we can get you comfortable enough to score yourself a 10 so I know I've done my job right, okay? And the reason that I word it like that, especially if you're working for someone else, is that they want to get you to a 10 so I know I've done my job right. So I know that if my boss watches this back, or my boss is listening in, or whatever, he's not going to like slate me for not doing my job right. So the customer or the prospect a lot of the times be like, oh, well, like, you're a good guy. I want to make sure you've done your job right today. So they're going to give you as much information at that point so that you've done your job right, okay? So you can just overcome those objections over and over and over again until they're basically like completely eradicated. So you can then say, okay, sounds like we've sort of answered everything. If they do bring up the price, again, all you need to do really is just sort of hit them back and say, look, I can understand you not being able to give me a 10 without knowing the price yet. That's what we're actually going to get into next. I just wanted to make sure, putting the price to one side for a second, you know everything you need to know about the program before we move on to price, okay? So that's basically how you then get into the next sort of section, which we would call like a tie down. And so really what you'll say there is that, you'll have answered all their questions. They've basically said, look, the only thing I need to know now is price. So you just say, so price to one side for a second, would you say the program is perfect for you and exactly what you're after? Okay, or the car is perfect for you, or whatever it is, right? And then they're either going to say, yeah, no, it's perfect, or they're going to say, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, there is this. Now you've got another objection that you can overcome, okay? So you can ask more questions to understand why it's not perfect for them. So once you then have that done, you can say, okay, cool. So, price to one side for a second. The program is now perfect for you. It's exactly what you're after. Yeah, okay, great. Awesome. So once they've sort of confirmed that, you want to do what's called like a double tie down. And then you want to say, okay, perfect. So if we're able to figure out price, you're willing to move forward today then. So if we're able to figure out the price, you're willing to move forward today then. Yeah. Okay. So again, they'll either say yes or they'll say no. And if they say no, remember, they've already confirmed that the program or whatever it is you're selling was perfect for them. So you can say, oh, but I thought service was perfect for you. Why wouldn't you be able to move forward today if it's perfect and we can work out the price? Okay. So then again, they're able to give you maybe more objections at that stage that you maybe didn't know about. Okay. Otherwise, they'll probably say, okay, yeah, no, I'm happy. Yeah, if we can get sorted the price out, I'm happy to move forward today. So you just say, okay, great. And you continue with your script. And that's where you want to get into, I normally do like 2 sort of final questions and ask, why is it you want to work with me specifically? And what would make you a good client for me? Okay. Depending on your industry, that may or may not be appropriate. But again, it's getting them to sell themselves in. And then I just get into the price at that stage. So I'll say, okay, cool. Yeah, it's it's 10 grand today. Are you happy enough to move forward with that? Okay. And then that is when they're either going to say, ooh, 10 grand. Don't know if I can do 10 grand. And you're like, all right, okay, cool. Well, what would be affordable for you to put down today? And then we can work out a payment plan. And then from there, they're going to start giving you stuff like, oh, well, I've got 3 grand in my account. You're like, okay, well, I'll take 3 grand today. And then, you get your calculator out and you say, and how's about over the next 11 months, you pay this per month? And then they're like, yeah, I can do that. Cool. And if they can't do that, then again, you just go back and forth until you've worked out a payment structure that's appropriate and works out for them. It also comes down to, what it is you're selling, what it is that you're willing to take, what it is you're not willing to take. And you can pay, that's all up to you in terms of how you build that payment structure. But certainly we've started doing that pre-close sequence and we've started working out custom pay plans for people, like our close rate has went through the roof. Whereas before, we maybe didn't do the pre-close sequence. We got to the end, there's objections. That's the way most people end up doing it. They overcome the objections at the end. And then you're like going back and forth on payment plans and stuff, or you're maybe having upfront and a payment plan that are just like firm. Whereas if you do it this way, you maximize the cash that you lift up front, and then you just make a custom payment plan that suits them. And that's just going to help with close rate way more. Whereas everything's very rigid, it's just not going to help. But that, in my opinion, is the best way to overcome objections, is to just obliterate them up front. Because now there's really no need for them to have any objections whenever you actually ask for the business. Because whenever you're asking for the business, all you want to focus on is closing the deal, okay? You don't want to focus on now, right, okay, so now they're like, oh, I'm not sure if I can afford that. Plus, I'm also not sure about those 6 other things that he never covered off or I never brought up or any. All they're like concentrating on now is like, okay, I don't know if I can afford this, and I'm also not sure of it, right? Whereas you've obliterated all the not sure. Now all we have is the price and the deal, okay? So that's pretty much the episode covered off on how I feel like you can really overcome objections and get better at objection handling is actually just obliterating them to begin with, okay? That's my technique, is obliterating them to begin with. Now, you may still be thinking, right, what about if they ask this? What about if they ask that, okay? The objections in your business are going to be unique to your business and what it is you sell. So make sure that you have the common objections and answers to those prepped ahead of time, and you know exactly what it is you're going to say. Okay, so if you do get to the bottom of that sequence and then they start throwing more objections at you, okay, you still need to have those rehearsed and know exactly what it is you're going to say. But if you use this system that I've just given you, that is going to obliterate most of the objections and make it far easier. And even speaking to my own, like I had a sales team member, he was closing at about 30%. He wasn't doing a lot of paid in fulls or getting a lot of money up front. It was all payment plans, right? As soon as we implemented this, he went from like 30 to 60% in a month. And his paid in fulls went like tripled. Okay, he used to never get a paid in full. Now he gets like triple the amount he would get in a month. He used to maybe do like a handful. Now he does like mostly paid in fulls, or he's just taking a larger upfront with a smaller payment plan. So it's better for everyone involved. So guys, implement that stuff. Let me know in the comments how you get on with it. I'm really curious, but I guarantee you if you implement this, it's going to put your close rate through the roof. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great one. I'll see you on the next one.